Yo, when I was 6 or 7 years old, I had a period where I was obsessed with demons, with Satan. I thought Satan was infiltrating my life. I thought he was inhabiting my stuffed animals and toys and tormenting me. And I was tormented. I would freak out. I would have panic attacks. It may have been because I had recently seen the Exorcist movie. I'm not exactly sure. It seems like that's a definite possibility. It could have been a cry for attention, a need or a desire to be special, to be treated in a special way, to be cared for, to have some attention, basically. I don't know what it was, but basically it was a little freaky, and it freaked my mother out, a single mother who worked full-time. She did not need that in her life, and it was tough. For that short period of time, it was tough. And we were Catholic at the time, so she called her priest, or a priest that she knew in the church, and she asked him what to do. And I'm not sure if she was hoping for a minor exorcism or something, but it didn't happen. But what he did do was he prayed with her over the phone for me, prayed for me with her over the phone. I was laying on the bed, as I recall, as best as I can recall, and she was sitting on the bed talking to him. And they said a prayer together, and the prayer went something like, "Dear God, please be a father to this young boy who has no father. Please help to guide him through this life. Help to show him the way." That was the basic gist of it. And I'm not sure how well or not that worked. I know that I'm no longer possessed, or feel like I'm possessed, or I'm no longer fearing demons. So eventually it subsided, probably relatively soon after that. It went away. But what didn't go away was my belief, or my grabbing onto the idea that God was my father, that God would take the place that my father left open, my biological father. That he would, and it was a he to me at the time, that he would be there for me when I needed him. And so, through the years, I would have these conversations with God. A very benevolent, loving, fully accepting God. I was never fearful of this God. I was never afraid of being judged by this God. I was never afraid of being punished by this God. And as such, I would be completely open with this benevolent being or presence in my head, or in the area surrounding my psyche, especially during hard times when I was miserable or in pain. When I got older, I would drink and be miserable or in pain, or do really stupid things and regret and feel depressed and want to kill myself. And there was this presence at the lowest points in my life, who I would speak to. I would never get a response, but I would speak to this presence about my feelings, about what I was going through. I would ask for help. Even though I knew I wouldn't get an answer, I would ask for help. And then I would go about my way. And it did help in many ways. It also made me feel kind of batshit crazy, because I knew that I was talking to myself on some level. But I also knew that I believed that there was something. I wasn't sure exactly what, but there was something that was listening, understanding, and absorbing my pain from me. So this continued through college, certainly, and well into my 20s, right up, really, I think, until the time I stopped drinking. Now, it doesn't mean that when I stopped drinking, I stopped believing in something greater than myself. Quite the opposite. But these conversations sort of ebbed at that point. I began to talk more to people, and sort of let go of the idea that I had a father in God, or that it was such a defined presence. It was more like, yes, I believed in some general goodness of the universe, but less like there was this presence absorbing my pain. I also just want to make something clear, is that I never ever thought that I was the Son of God. It was a child of God that I knew. I understood that. I never felt protected or more or safer than anything else in this world. I just felt like this was there for me if I needed it. And then I just, with adulthood, with sobriety, with everything, a life, children, it just went away. I just didn't think about it or deal with it anymore. Until recently, really, when I was approaching 50 and I started thinking about it more and started thinking more about the thoughts in my head, obviously, and how I communicate them or not, and how I want to communicate them or not sometimes. And it's been lacking for me in a way, this sort of voice. But I also understand that it is not necessarily normal to speak to yourself about things and mutter, and I don't necessarily want to portray that. I don't want that to be a portrayal of me or whatever. I don't want that to be who I am. I don't want to be muttering to myself necessarily. The point I'm trying to make here is this. Having this sort of vague but loving, powerful presence in my mind during a good portion of my life that I could throw out this seeming insanity to, this pain, this confusion, and be comforted by it without judgment, without punishment, without fear of retribution, without fear of losing this presence, was a major, major force of good in my life. It helped me so much. It was tremendous for me. And looking back on that now, I can only hope that in some way I could be like that for someone. I could absorb their pain when they're talking, or just be there to listen, acutely listen, really be present and listen, and take it all in without judgment, without being freaked out and leaving them, without them fearing that I wouldn't accept something that they said or had done. Of course, my children come to mind, my boys. I want them to think of me as that. I will tell you this, they certainly do not at this point. I fall far short of that ideal, and I probably always will. But that's the ideal in my head. It's something to strive for. It's something that I benefited from, kind of ironically, not having a father. But I benefited from that growing up, I think on some level, even though it made me feel kind of crazy. It did help me and may have prevented me from doing things that I really would have regretted. So for what it's worth, it's a mentor for me, in a way, that vague presence in my life, that vague father figure in my life. Whether or not I still believe in that now, it doesn't really matter. It did exist at a certain point, and may still. I love you.